So there's a few videos that I've been wanting to get recorded over the last couple of days that I've just not got around to yet because other things keep coming up. Russell Brand now, this is actually today. Oh no, 2 days ago, sorry. 2 days ago. So here's Russell Brand on his channel.
Speak that we're seeing more and more of as the world slides into an Orwellian hellscape.
Taoiseach, your government conducted a public consultation regarding hate speech laws where citizens were asked to give their thoughts on the issue, and out of the thousands of responses from private individuals, over 70% were not supportive of such laws.
All these leaders that look kind of nice.
So here we've got Russell Brand's highlighting the current situation in Ireland with the government, and the government did a public consultation because they're wanting to get, well, they're claiming they're going to change the laws in Ireland over freedom of speech. Now, out of this consultation that they did to the public, where they went to the public and asked them for an opinion, over 70% were against what the Irish government wanted to do. Now, surely that reflects the entire country. But then again, remember that half of the people in Ireland don't vote. Even if these ministers are going for election themselves or for their parties, they cannot get over half of the public to even turn out and vote, let alone vote for their party. So the Irish Parliament cannot even get half of the public to turn out to vote. Now, that Irish minister, he claimed that, when they do a consultation, it's influenced by various factors and people telling people to go in and make representations that for either way. But that's the point, isn't it? It doesn't matter whether the public are telling people to do that. When the government do it, the government are making the announcement themselves, so the government are already asking everyone. If you're doing a petition and no one knows about it, and you've got to try and get as many people interested as you want, but Bristol Council are taking the banners down from the M32, so you can't let anyone know, then you're at a disadvantage. When the Irish government themselves make an announcement that they're doing a consultation, then they're telling everyone. Now, then the Irish minister's saying that, oh no, well, people are telling people what to say, what to do that. Well, but they asked everyone, and they're entitled to do that because that's the point. In fact, the whole point of a political party when they're running candidates for an election in Ireland is to influence people and try and get them to vote for their party. So the Irish minister is basically making an excuse that people from an opposing position are trying to get people to represent an opposing position. So when he's running for government, does he say that, people, I'm trying to get people to represent my party and get other people to represent me and my party as well. So therefore, I must be cheating. No, he doesn't. Now, the thing is, right, I know that Ireland, the south of Ireland, is a different country now. And the strange situation is that Sinn Féin now is in Northern Ireland and they're wanting to unite the whole of Ireland together. I don't know whether that's going to be under the laws and rules of South Ireland or what, but currently Northern Ireland operates under the freedoms and liberties of the realm of England, under Magna Carta and under the Bill of Rights in Northern Ireland, although they've got certain legislation that's slightly different. Now, the thing is this: if we go on the basis of English law and English rights, we're going to use the model for the Irish government now. Now, I've just recorded the important bits from this Russell Brand video, and I'll put the link to my video or to Russell's video in the link in the description for this, right? But this is now what I have learned to be the actual situation we're dealing with, right? And that is that we've got a law, Magna Carta, and Clause 38 or 39, there are 4 clauses still in effect. I thought it was 3, but there's 4. And one of them is that we cannot be dispossessed of anything or our effects or any things, which includes public property when it's meant to be owned by the taxpayer, without a due process of law, which is a legal process that could be in council or in government or in the courts, right? Although corporate entities are trying to claim that their policy is a lawful due process because you agree to them under the contract, but yet a lot of those contracts are contrary to law. We can't have anything taken from us or be dispossessed of anything, which includes taxpayer things that the council want to remove when it's meant to be our things, without a lawful process which must comply with law and statute, and by point of law or the opinions, the judgment of the people, the peers, right? Now, I keep saying this is exemplified in the Ian Bray case at Southwark, right? But this all now is coming to light because what it means is that we can't have anything taken, our effects, and, if it's public property, if it's a village, this is why you can't have a building that changes the look and style of the village. It's got to be checked and regulated, and people can object, and there are certain regulations. Why are all these regulations in place for building and planning, Now, you might say, well, there is different acts of legislation that have got specific clauses and provisions, and, these are updates to the law. That's true. But, firstly, the government and local councils, both here and in Ireland, they've got a lot of guidance on their websites, and it claims to be the law, but it's not. It's not the law. It's actually what they are presenting as the law. And when you look at what that is based on legally to support it, in effect, is quite different to what they're claiming is the law. And one of these things is like building and planning. So in building and planning, when you put an objection in, there are all these criteria. You can only object on this point or that point or this point or that point or on these things or those things. And then they've got a list of things that you can't object about, right? Well, that is complete guidance, and it is false. It is a lie. And then when you go to the legislation, it's actually not the same. It's not actually meaning the same thing. And then even the legislation, I've proven this with the seatbelt law and Alistair Darling, right? When he enacted the seatbelt law and he made up law which wasn't coherent with existing law, and with the basis of what he was writing wasn't even coherent, right? And this is what they've been doing, what Priti Patel's doing now, and, Rishi Sunak with a lot of this legislation. Now, all of the acts of law that they make, it has to be compatible with the statute law. The statute law sets out principles through law that cannot be overridden or taken away in the legislation, because then the legislation would be unlawful and not providing for your rights. That means that the criminal procedure rules, the civil procedure rules, have all got to facilitate for rights being claimed, like in the overriding objectives. So you can claim rights in legal proceedings, and they have to be recognised. All these things, and then different acts of law, like all the police laws, and anytime there's legislation and there are things where you rights may need to be claimed or in effect, it's got to be provided for in the act. And if it isn't, then it can be overridden by overriding objectives can be entered. You see, if you're claiming a medical right and if you're injured, let's look at the Criminal Damage Act. In the Criminal Damage Act, it doesn't actually really talk about if you're injured or so forth. But obviously, if you've got a medical right, it does say that, if you've got a right privilege or interest. So there it's providing for when rights come into force. But in other acts, it might not necessarily refer to in a case where you might be injured or incapacitated. But in the criminal procedure rules, because in statute law, you have a right under the liberties and freedoms of the realm and under the Human Rights Act to claim medical rights. If any particular act of law does not have a provision where you may enter, a claim for right, then it's illegal. It's not compatible with the legislation of the country, with the liberties of the realm. This is why something like the criminal procedure rules and the civil procedure rules, these are the procedure rules when people are bringing legal cases. They've got overriding objectives. Now, the reason they're called overriding means they've got the power to override an act of law, override legislation. It's like when you write a computer program and you write, if X is Y and if Z is G, but then you can have an overriding command. The command comes from a higher level, right? From a higher law, from a higher statute objective. And it overrides other legislation and commands. But all of those commands are supposed to facilitate in them provisions for that, or else they're not compatible. If they're in conflict with a right, law is supposed to be compatible, not in conflict. In fact, it's unlawful for it to be in conflict. Now, this is the thing. Going back to the Irish government, right? Now, the problem is, and also over here in the court, in local councils, but we'll use the Irish government for an example, right? Everyone has a local electoral area and they elect councillors. And those councillors are meant to consult with the public and then represent individual people, but also if 51% of a local area don't want something, the local councillor has an obligation, really, in law, to represent the higher percentage when they put their opinion forward. Now, if no one enters an opinion, then it means, the councillors like to think that because half the country doesn't vote, they're not bothered. So I would say to the Irish minister, right, there's no point arguing about who's telling who what and who's telling who this or that, because at the end of the day, they can't even get anyone to vote for them or even turn out to vote. If you can't get anyone to turn out to vote, you're not going to get them to vote for, and you're not going to get them to vote against. But at least they're not voting for ministers and parties that they don't want. They weren't voted for them, that's for sure. They'll soon know if they start voting against them, I'll tell you that. Now, when all the councillors come together, each councillor is meant to represent any person who's got an individual interest or case, either by petition or through surgery representation in any matter. And when it's an important matter and people have strong opinions, really, every electoral area will have so many people for and against on things. And the councillor is meant to represent the majority of the local people on whatever points they feel strongly about. And then when the councillors vote on something in the local council, they're meant to be voting each of the councillors on the totality of the opinion of each of the areas, right? But what's happening is that they're voting on what their political party tells them to vote for, or what the executive wants to get through in the council, or what the government have told them is the next big plans for the town or city, or what contractors are making money out of it, right? And that is where we have been defrauded. We're actually being defrauded by the major political parties because they're not representing us at all. Now, when councils and local governments are going to do something, they have a consultation. Now, they're claiming that in the rules of government and in the rules of council, they're claiming, this is their claim, they're claiming that through their guidelines, which isn't law, and through legislation, which they claim is the law, they're laying the claim that we're asking the public what their opinion is so we can get an idea. Well, why would they want to get an idea? Well, they would want to get an idea so they want to know what the public think. Because what's the point in asking them, unless you're just asking them as a chore? You ask them to find out what their opinion is. Now, if that opinion doesn't count, what's the point in asking for it? And, this is the thing. Now, the problem is that once the government has officially asked, and this is not, a magazine doing a poll. This is not some independent magazine doing a poll. This is the actual government official. Once the government declare that they're going to do something and they ask the public for their opinion, they're getting it in writing. And they're not just getting a vote in a box or a tick, they're actually getting an opinion. Now, this is the thing. Therefore, it is, whether you like it or don't like it, you have obtained statements from the public in writing of their actual opinion in actual full detail, not just a tick in a box which says for or against. They've even gone into reasoning why. Like, these are witness statements. Now, I don't know which act of law the Irish First Minister and government think that they are reading this off, and they think that there are certain rules in government and acts which says you can run a public consultation and it will be this or that. And if they think or believe, they don't have to act on that. Now, in England, I can absolutely guarantee you this, and this is fact. When you run a public consultation, it doesn't matter what you call it, and it doesn't matter what legislation you claim to be running it through. You have obtained in writing officially the opinion of the peers, of the people, right? And in law, if you are seeking to deprive the public of something, whether that's trees in the town or whether it is public toilets, then the public toilets, the taxpayers' toilets, if you are going to deprive the public of something, whether it's public toilets or whether it's trees or whether it's their rights, if you're going to deprive them of their effects, so your effects are things that, powers. Your effects are powers and rights. Their effects, your effects. When you're walking around in public, what are your effects? Well, I've got, some money, I can buy things. I've got rights, I can do things, right? This man here, this Irish minister, and the Welsh First Minister as well, in Wales, let's not forget that. This guy, right, he's seeking, him and his fellow ministers are seeking to deprive the Irish people of their effects, their rights, through a process of law by which they're going to change the legislation. That is a lawful process, a process of law. And the Irish First Minister is going to use a process of law, lawful due process, to take away currently, which are the effects of the Irish people. And he's going to do that because he wants to, or because the other Irish ministers want to. Yet, when they turn up to vote on it and put it through government, each of the ministers is representing their local constituency. And they asked the public, right? They asked the public of their opinion, like they do when there's an election on. Now, when there's an election on, they don't say, oh, there's certain people who didn't bother turning up and there were certain people trying to influence people, including us, because we were trying to get them to vote for us. And, oh, you know, this doesn't represent... They might as well say that there was an election and we got elected, but it doesn't really represent the true opinion of the Irish people. So, you know, I might as well stand down because, you know, people were trying to get people to vote for the other party. And in fact, I got people to vote for me and tried to spread the word to vote for me. That's why I'm here. Right? And then people told people not to vote. What the Irish minister doesn't say, he doesn't say, oh, this is illegitimate, this election, because half the Irish people didn't vote, and then we were trying to get people to vote for us, and we were trying to influence people to get more people to vote for us. So, you know, that's not really a true representation of the election. No, he doesn't. He says, oh, I won, right? Now, I can guarantee you that these consultations, the word consultation is a red herring. It's one of the modern terms that has been used to depower or defraud us out of fact. When anyone makes a statement, whether it's a complaint to a monitoring officer, whether it is a petition to the local council for parks or to the central government, even a divorce, it is petition when it's to the government in writing. And when it is a request in writing to a government authority, it's a petition, right? Now, if they call it a petition, then you'd have to acknowledge the rights to petition, right? They've got to facilitate and provide for public petitions that the people have gone about and collected themselves in all council meetings and government meetings if the petitions have been submitted. It's ironic that what the government is actually doing and the local councils when they do their consultation, hidden, camouflaged in the word consultation, is they're actually going to the public using taxpayer money on the government website and facilities to go out of their way to ask their public for their opinion without us having to bother going around and collecting it ourselves, which is almost like having a referendum. Now, the thing is, we can petition for a referendum, and when that referendum is held on 5% of the electorate, then everyone gets asked, and then you get their opinion, and they're making us collect at least 5% of the electorate for that. No one ever bothers trying to ask for it. If they did, then we would get to decide on every matter ourselves, and the turnout for that would decide what was going to happen. Now, the major two political parties don't really like that, because then there's no point in voting for a political party, because every time they do something, they're going to go on what the public want and not what the political party wants. So what's the point of having been a member of a party? You might as well just have all independent candidates. The political parties want to do what they want to do. That is Labour and Tory mainly, except in Ireland. Now, this is the big con. This is the big deception. This is the big trick, the big magic trick, the big charades game. What they've done is they've got all the facilities on the website and on public taxpayer money that we're paying for, the consultation. And what they're doing is, like in a referendum, they're asking, let me quote, everyone. What did I just say? Did I just say... No, everyone. They are issuing a statement to, I quote, in brackets, in triple brackets, in quadruple brackets, everyone, what their opinion is. Now, that's what you do if we have to go out of our way to use our money, not the council's money, to get 5% of the electorate so we can have a referendum. So they do the exact same thing as a consultation, ask, I quote, everyone, announced through the advertising airwaves of the government, let everyone know, give everyone notice through the websites and television and radio and through the post, there is a consultation, right? We haven't had to go and get 5% of the electorate to have that. Now, if we referred to these consultations as a petition, then everyone would realise what actually has just happened and what it actually is and what is going on, and institute law what actually the value and weight of that is. Now, if you want to defuse a bomb, if you want to get a bomb disposal team and go into a live device, into a live explosive situation, to a live weapon which has the potential to be discharged, you have to send in a special team who have to go into the workings of that and pull wires out and pull the correct wires out in order to disarm it so it has no power, so it can't be detonated. Now, petitions, particularly when you got 5% of the electorate, like in Wales currently with the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits, when they've got over 5%. Oh, no, sorry, they got nearly 3 times more than 3 or 4, nearly got 500,000 signatures, more than 5% of the electorate, and only 5% of those are from England, which means that, yes, they've got more than 5% of Welsh people signed up, and you're meant to have a referendum on it. Well, we know they don't even want referendum. When there's so many people signed and gone out of the way to collect the signatures, so then it proves to the government that they've got to ask everyone, then now Drakeford stood down rather than doing the job and asking everyone. So they've got to ask everyone, but this is the gag. This is the joke. This is the crack. This is the trick. Drakeford doesn't want to have a referendum, and neither does the Secretary of State for Transport, because then he'll have to plug the wire back into the bomb and reactivate it. So then you press the button and everyone votes, and then they've got to act on what the people vote on, whether they turn out to vote or not, an higher percentage. Just like when they get elected. If half the people don't want to vote, then they don't. And if the majority of the people who do have a say vote against the government, then we're not going to do it. Now, Drakeford and Labour cannot live, cannot stand, cannot bear for the public to say how it will be, which is not a democracy. They want you to vote for their party and then walk away and let them steer the vehicle. They don't want you to say, oh, actually, no, for that matter, I think we'll do this instead. They want you to cast the vote and then walk away and let them take care of everything. That couldn't be further from the point of electing a councillor, a minister, to represent you in all matters that you're concerned about in council or government. Now, they don't want people to know about this local referendum business because then they won't be able to do any strategic planning. Now, what they've done is to appear to be politically correct, to appear to be democratic. They've got themselves this little term called a public consultation. Isn't that clever? And they've used our taxpayer money to set up a website and email system and a special map and all these things on the internet. And then they're going to consult us so we don't have to go out of our way to spend our money to collect 5% of the electorate. Then we can make the government ask everyone, and then they've got to act on it. What they do is, oh, don't worry about it. Don't you worry your little socks off. I'll tell you what, we'll use your taxpayer money, and then you've elected us into government. What we'll do is, every time now we're going to do something important, don't you worry now there, don't you worry. We'll ask them. Don't worry about the 5%. We'll ask them anyway. We'll go ask them anyway. But we'll call it a consultation. What's the first three letters of it? Consultation. We won't call it a petition, because then you might recognise that it is a petition because everyone wrote to the council their opinion in writing and gave judgment on the matter. No, we'll call it a consultation. Don't get confused with, as asking the public what their opinion is, or the public writing into us what their opinion is. Don't get confused with that. What? The same thing? Well, yeah, what witness statements and testimony and opinion. Yes, that little thing. There now. Don't worry about that thing there. That little thing there. What's that there? Oh, people writing in with their opinions to us into local government on an official matter. Oh, that little thing. Don't worry about that little thing. What, that little thing? Like a petition. No, that's a consultation. No, it's not. Now, what's the most powerful booming thing you can do to a government other than write in with as many people in writing and as much detail as possible, short of ticking a box and putting your postcode in? What's the most powerful thing you can do is write as many letters and words as possible and put more detail into your opinion and send it into the council on a particular matter. Right? Now, who's pulled the wire out of that bomb? Where's the bomb disposal expert there? So what they've done is dressed up the petition on one matter, right, and disguised it. Look, change a couple of letters here, change a couple of letters there. No, this is not a petition. It's a consultation. Oh, there, I see what you've done there, Minister. I see what you've done there. You pulled the red wire out and put the brown wire in there. That's very clever, isn't it? But it's the same thing. It's the same thing there. It's the same thing. It's the opinion of the public. You docile streak. Very clever, Starmer. Genius. Genius, Starmer. But what you've got is the opinion of the public. Still, in more greater detail than ticking a box. Still. So, under override institute law, that you cannot deprive the public of anything, whether it's their trees in the park, whether it's the public toilets or their effects, their rights, without a lawful due process, like a consultation on the matter declared, or without an opinion of the peers. If they cast it, if they bother to send it in, if you bother to ask them, how can you ignore the results of the referendum when there's 70% have opposed? Out of those who bothered to write in, probably the same 70% if you'd have cast the referendum. You Doyle them. So what you've got is Irish ministers pretending that you're worthless unless you're electing them. When you're voting for them, they've activated, stick the wire in. Now it's valid. But when you're voting for something that they don't want you to, pull the wire out. Now this is treason against the realm. Treason. Now the problem with these people is what Russell Brand says. They're all smiles. They want to change the behaviour of the country. So no one gets emotional, no one gets angry, no one shouts and swears. We're all very polite. The problem is that emotion and anger is there to motivate strength of action and response when you need strength to open the door, unless your muscle ain't strong enough to lift it. Now, once it's illegal to give a strong response, you can only give a weak one at that. Now, when you don't have any strength or any rights left at all, and we're all talking polite, now the thing is, currently, it's still lawful what many Irish people are doing. It's still lawful. These people want to make it unlawful, illegal, criminal. But yet, they're in a parliament, on television, politely speaking, all friendly. Oh, it's an Irish woman, a plain librarian style. Oh, it's just an Irish woman. I'm just a normal Irish woman in Irish government. Look, you know. But it doesn't matter how polite you are. It doesn't matter how nice you sound and what language you use. When you're committing treason and defrauding the public. Now, these ministers are claiming that we are the ones who need to change our behaviour because they don't like the sound of it, the style of it, the volume of it. Yet, for all their politeness and all their politically correctness, what they're doing, don't need to make it illegal, don't need to change the law and make it illegal. It's criminal. They're committing a crime against the people. They're defrauding the public out of their rights by changing names and terms and writing false, fake procedures on government website, meanwhile giving powers to corporate entities and companies, which are then saying that anything that we do which they don't like, or which has a potential to do something, they want to make it unlawful. And then the more and more they block and obstruct us, like in the Petitions Committee in Parliament, like not giving us the referendum in Wales, what's that going to do when we get the signatures? They're not acting on them. When you get 400,000 signatures in Wales, what more do they want? Have the referendum. They've already given us it in the consultation and disarmed it. They have disempowered it unlawfully. They have pulled the fuse out of it because they don't want it. They don't want it to have effect, power. And now it's become a compulsory, almost like a ceremony, an empty ceremony. It's almost like, you know, when you go to church and they pass a quaver around or whatever, have a piece of this quaver. It's symbolic. It's actually not a vote which carries an effect. It's now an empty symbolic thing. Or it's like, you know, tipping your hat in public just because it's polite. You're meant to do these things for a reason, because you care or whatever. Not just because these people, they're going through motions out of etiquette or whatever, but they're meaningless. Because there's no point tipping your hat to someone or bowing or curtsying or opening the door for someone. Oh, well, you're actually opening it, you know. Oh, you know, if you know, saying, oh, you open the door for you, you don't do it. it's the consultation is a pretend gesture, which, you know, it carries nothing, because they're saying that they're claiming it's not carrying anything. But whatever guidance they've got is not the law. And if there is any law which claims that they don't have to act on that, then that law is in conflict with the statute laws. Now, I don't know if Ireland has the effect of Magna Carta clause or the petition of right, but it did do at one point. I know Northern Ireland will do. And unfortunately, that could be another part of the con if Sinn Féin end up uniting all Ireland and Northern Ireland lose those rights as well. Because I think it's a good idea to have Ireland as one united country, but not under the laws of Southern Ireland, which are defrauding people out of their rights. Now, if I was the Irish First Minister, I would check the statute law very carefully, word for word, to see if it says that people can't be deprived of their effects or things without a lawful due process and rule of law, or by the judgment of their peers if they give it, if they give their opinion. Now, who's calling for the consultation? Who's asking for the opinion?